Hello, welcome back to another video. This is part 2 of the history of the RBC, LDC, and the Great Money Scam. In this video, I'm going to discuss how Watchtower has a connection with Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's franchisee system, and also how they stole millions of dollars, how they transitioned from a book publishing company who made money selling magazines to a real estate multimedia empire. So stay tuned for the entire video. The first thing I want to do before we get started is describe what the RBC and the LDC is. I saw a lot of comments in my last video last Saturday. So first off, what does RBC stand for? RBC is Regional Building Committee. Now in America, I don't know how the world did it, but in America, every territory was divided up into each RBC fiefdom or kingdom or dukedom, however you want to call it. There were 5 elders who were on the RBC committee. They oversaw all the building, remodeling, disaster relief work in that area. In Pennsylvania, originally we had 2 RBCs. Eventually we went to 5. I was in RBC 2. That was the center of the state. We went from like Altoona to a little past Lancaster, from Maryland to New York state border. So right the third of the center of the state. There are 2 more to the west, Pittsburgh, and 2 more to the east, Philadelphia area. That's what RBC stands for. RBC came around 1980 and was discontinued in 2015. Or replaced it. Well, the LDC, what does that stand for? It stands for Local Design Committee. Now, instead of a local, 5 elders, 3 elders who were just contractors, construction workers, now the organization had completely control over the building and work in each area. So the LDC was not run by local elders, it was run by Watchtower. And we'll get into the history and why they changed that in this video. So stay tuned, buckle up. It might be a long one. Hopefully I will stay on target, and give me some pointers, council points in the description and the comments if I, mess up too many times, and make good use of illustrations and gestures too. So let's begin. So let's say in the 1980s, 1990s, early 2000s, you wanted to build a kingdom hall. How would you go about it, or remodel? So it would not start with the publishers. The publishers had no control. The local elders would, talk about it, debate about it. Somebody would put it on the agenda for quarterly's elders meeting and saying why we needed to build a new hall or remodel. As long as there were enough support in the body, they would progress. Now, excuse me. So what happened is they would form a local building committee. It would be 3 elders. Usually one of those elders had to have some kind of experience in construction, whether it be a plumber, electrician. They wanted somebody with some knowledge in the industry. They would go look for land. They would talk to a real estate agent. They would start investigating. This whole time was going on. Usually the congregation did not know about it. Now, people might leak out rumors, but really it was not the congregation's decision. We'll get to it before. So how would they pay for it? Well, remember, before like 1990, there really was no arrangement to borrow money from the Watchtower. So usually congregations would have a building fund. So they would make an announcement and said, hey friends, we're starting a savings account to save up money for a building fund. If you want to donate money, write a check out, write in the memo line, building fund. Some congregations call it the maintenance fund. This fund was to help if a roof leaked, if the driveway needed paved, if they needed to repaint the lines in the parking lot, whatever. That was the maintenance/building fund. So they would save money. Sometimes it would take 5-10 years to save enough money. When the RBC arrangement came in and when the Kingdom Hall Assistant Program came in, they still did these things, but now that loan would supplement what that savings account would supplement what the loan would be from the Watchtower. Also, when they sold their Kingdom Hall, that money went directly, not to Watchtower, it went into their building fund because they own the Kingdom Hall, not Watchtower, and we're going to get to that point later on. So, if the elders found land, if they agreed on it, what was the next step? They would have to talk to the circuit overseer, the district overseer for the time, and the regional building committee. Because even if like all 12 elders agreed to it, even if they thought it was a perfect property, if the local RBC did not like it, they would say, no, we don't like the land, whatever, this and this and that. And then the RBC would say, okay, we approve it. The circuit overseer, district overseer have no problem with it. Then the next thing is they wanted a budget. How much money would it be? Now, I don't know if this happened in every congregation, but it happened in mine. So what would happen is a local needs part at a Tuesday night or a Thursday night service meeting, they would say, hey, we're going to remodel this hall. We want to know how much funds you can donate extra above, beyond what you're normally giving for the local needs, like for the water, the electricity, supplies for the bathroom. So we would pass out slips, and then the coordinator, back then would be the presiding overseer, they would, count how much money people wrote down on the slips and go back to the RBC and says, okay, we can afford $500, $1,000 a month loan from the branch. And then they would go through it. It would be usually always approved. Now, originally it was 6%. Later, Watchtower reduced it in the early 2000s to 3%. And about 10 years ago, I think they got rid of all the interest completely, which sounds great, but we'll get into that more later on, why that is just really evil. So after the loan arrangement came into existence, after that third congregation box, the Kingdom Hall Assistance Program, which came into existence around 1990, 31 years ago, and the goal was $1 per publisher per month, about $1 million in America, $12 million a year. That would fund all the building construction projects they would need. So there was an explosion of Kingdom Hall builds, like I talked in my last video, in the early 1990s. But then eventually that construction work slowed down because the growth in the organization slowed down, especially in America. The growth really happened in Latin America and Africa. In America, it was just a slow decline in growth, especially in my area. For instance, my county, York County, Pennsylvania, which I've lived most of my life. I've lived in Lancaster County and Schuylkill County also. There's 450,000 people in this county. There's 14 congregations out of the 450,000 people. There are 12 English, there are 1 Spanish and 1 sign language. So 12 English congregations for a little about 500,000 people. But actually, right now, there's less congregations than that. In the county I was at from 10 years, 87 to 97, Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania, up in the mountains, that county has about 130, 120,000 people. It's more, rural and mountain. It used to be a coal mining area. That county only had, one time it had 7 congregations. Now I think it only has 3. And we'll get into that later on, why that went the other way. It wasn't like there's less witnesses. We'll see what happened there. So in the early 2000s, in my area, the focus went on from building new halls to remodeling, because a lot of those early halls were built so fast. They were mold, they had problems with it. It was shoddy work, excuse my language, but that's what it was. And it was just bad. Like the Springdale congregation, I think it was built in 85. It was one of the first quick builds in the area that I live in now. And in like 2005, 2006, 30 years later, they had to gut that entire building to the boards because all the sheetrock, all the insulation had to go because there was so much mold. They sealed it up tight. So later on, they would slow down the build. They wouldn't build it in 2 days. Then they went to 4 days. Then they went to like 2 weekends. And then they even went slower, where they wouldn't do the painting for like a week or 2 later to let everything dry and air out after that. So now I want to talk about another topic that might get me in trouble, but I'm going to say it anyway. And I really believe, being out for 5 years now, that the entire process was a rigged scam. It was entirely a money-making deal from day one, and I sincerely believe that. Now, do I have proof that there was fraud in the RBC work? No, I do not. But I have stories, I have arguments, I have fights, I have comments people said. So when I was in Redline for the second time, I was in Redline from 78 to 82 as a little kid. I moved back in 99 as a ministerial servant. I eventually became an elder in Redline, and I left in 2013. So I was there 14 years my second time. And we had 2 quick builds in those 14 years. Now, that hall was built originally in the 50s, right after World War II. And then in 2002, they built a new Kingdom Hall. And then in 2007, it burned down, and then they built another one, another quick build in 2008, January of 2008. So Redline was really unique. We had 2 brothers. They weren't elders or servants. They were just the guys. They both were district managers of mega restaurant corporations. One was a district manager of Red Lobster. The other one was of Cracker Barrel. If anybody's watching this video out of America and don't know those 2 restaurants, they're kind of totally American restaurants, let's put it that way. And the one who was a Cracker Barrel, he started there as like a teenager, washing dishes. He never went to college. He just worked his way up, became an assistant manager, managed his own Cracker Barrel restaurant, and then became a district manager. So he was a troubleshooter. He was a problem solver. They would fly him all over the country. If a store was having issues, he would train new managers. He would go to conferences once or twice a year. The Red Lobster guy was not high up at Red Lobster as a Cracker Barrel guy, but he also had a lot of experience. And after both builds, I heard so many complaints of these two brothers saying, you know, I have been buying food wholesale for 30 years, for 20 years. We are paying way too much money for this food. There's no way it should cost this much money. Now remember, the way the RBC was structured, they would provide, part of your loan arrangement would be for the food. They would bring in their trailers with the kitchens in it, and the stoves and all the ovens. But the local sisters, had to make cakes, pies, cookies, desserts, donuts. So the RBC would not provide any desserts. So all the sisters would bring, hundreds of pies and cakes. Other congregations in the area would always do the same thing. So all they did was provide toast, bacon, egg, sausage for breakfast, sandwiches, maybe a hot meal for lunch, and then a bigger dinner. And both people complained to me and said that they're overcharging. They can get food at a cheaper price. Why are they paying this much money? Also, another story I have when it comes to money issues, and again, I have no proof. This is just a speculation. It is just a guess. So please, take this with a grain of salt. But every quick build had, whether it was a remodel or a new build, had a tent for accounting or a camper for accounting. And they would always have a local brother who would sit in the accounting department, an elder. Usually it was an older guy or somebody who had no experience in construction. And when we were doing the effort of quick build, the one elder walked out of that accounting office, and I was mixing mud or mortar for the brick. And he's like, Martin, let me take over. I want to do this. I can't work with those guys. There's something wrong. Oh, complaining. This was 25 years ago, 23 years ago. Yeah, so I don't know what was going on there. This also happened in York Anna build. I saw an argument with two guys in the accounting department. Does that mean anything? No. It could have been just a personality issue. It could have been a million different things. But I really think that they were overcharging for materials, that they were overcharging for food, that it didn't cost that much money. Just like one of my arrogant jerks of an uncle, 30 plus years ago in the 80s said, there's no way it should cost $300,000 to build a Kingdom Hall 30 years ago. The labor's free. We're just buying material. There is no way it should cost that. That is why that congregation built it themselves. For instance, in my area today, I can buy a brand new 2,000 square foot house for $300,000. So why would it cost $500,000 or $1 million to build a Kingdom Hall if the land's not that expensive? Again, do I have proof? No. So please just take that, what I'm trying to say, and we'll go from there. That's all I can say. But I do know in January 2008, the Watchtower, when our hall burned down in November of 2007, it was a Sunday after Thanksgiving, and our hall was paid off in Redline. We had an old guy. He was in his 80s. He never married, never had kids. He lived in a one-bedroom apartment. Before he became a Jehovah's Witness, he was in the military for 20 years. He worked for PennDOT for 20 years. He had double pensions plus Social Security. So when he died, he gave all of his money to our Kingdom Hall. So we paid off our loan in 2004, even though we only had a loan for 2 years. And then we had so much extra money, Redline, that we actually helped buy all the camera equipment, the TV equipment, for when the sign language congregation started up in 2004. And we also gave some money for the circuit overseer's apartment that year to remodel that. So we had a lot of money. So our hall was paid off. But we paid into the Kingdom Hall Assistance Program. We paid into that insurance. And I'm going to make a video about that too eventually. And plus it was a big deal. Kingdom Hall burned down. So that happened Sunday morning right before the Kingdom Hall meeting started, and Monday morning, less than 24 hours later, Watchtower gave $20,000 cash to us to start the demolition process because the hall was lost. They then, within a week, gave us an additional $30,000 to help with the demolition. But the demolition did not even cost close to $50,000 because, like I told you in the last video, we had a lot of witnesses in the Hanover area who were big into construction, and they had their own heavy equipment. They brought their own, wreckers and all that stuff and bulldozers, and we didn't have to rent a single piece of equipment. We didn't have to pay for any labor because that company had their own truck drivers because they did road construction for the state and the county. There was a landfill about 4 miles from the Kingdom Hall. The guy was super religious when he saw this, even though they're Jehovah's Witness. When he saw this Kingdom Hall burned to the ground, he was so motivated that he said, I am not going to charge you one penny to dump this landfill. So we didn't have to pay a penny for dumping the waste. We didn't have to pay for the drivers. So I was working there during the demolition, and people came up to me from local congregations, local churches. Sorry about that. And I got a $5 bill from an old lady. Just drive up and said, "I'm so sorry, but here's $5. Okay, that's cool. Well, then other churches took a contribution together, a collection together, and gave us hundreds of dollars. So Watchtower loves to say how they're put upon, how everybody hates them, but really they're not. It's just a persecution complex that the community came together. So we were way under our build, way under. And we gave thousands and thousands of dollars back to headquarters, to the RBC, because we didn't need nearly as much money. And the interesting thing was, I don't understand it too myself. Why did the money come to us, our Kingdom Hall? Why didn't it go to the RBC? Why did Watchtower pay us directly? Again, this shows you back then. Now, it could have been just a one-off, I don't know. Or it could have been the fact that the RBC and the headquarters did not have direct control like the LDC has today. Maybe, I don't know. But that's an interesting thing I always wondered about. So, yeah, actually, one more thing. The Circuit Overseer was so happy with our progress and how much money we saved. He gave us a rousing talk and what a great, example we were. So now let's go after 2010. So in 2008, remember I worked for the RBC for over 10 years. After 2008, in my area, there was no longer a need for Kingdom Halls anymore. In fact, I only worked on one brand new Kingdom Hall after 2008, and that was Wilkes-Barre, a double hall. I think it was in 2011. Even the remodeling work seemed to slow down all of a sudden. We weren't doing as many builds. Like for some years, we were doing like 6 to 8 builds or remodels a year. Then it was like 2 or 3 builds a year. It just slowed down so much. Like the money got tight. Like they weren't loaning money out anymore. So, for instance, in 2015, I really noticed that things were changing. Like I said earlier, there was 12 English congregations in York County. Now there's only 11. There could be less than that. But in 2015, the way York County is laid out is the city, the suburbs. We have a lot of veteran communities from Baltimore and Washington. People live in Pennsylvania but commute to both those cities. So the southern York County, even though there's a lot of farmland, even though there's a lot of Amish, it's a lot more densely populated. Then you have big cities like Hanover and York. But when you get northern York, before you get to Harrisburg, it's pretty sparse, the area I live right now, northern York County. There's still a lot of stuff there, but there's not a lot of towns. There's just more developments. There's only one congregation in northern York County. The other 11 were all southern York County in the city or on the Maryland border. And they had a sloping floor Kingdom Hall. It was built in the 50s or 60s. It was a really weird setup Kingdom Hall. They had a stage like an assembly hall. Like you couldn't just walk up the stairs. You had to go around the back to get up to the stage because there's a room on a pedestal. So it was going to cost way too much money to remodel that hall. They only had 60 publishers. It was an old congregation. And I think somebody ran the numbers and said, this is not profitable to keep this Kingdom Hall open or build a new hall. They just dissolved it in 2015, right before the LDC arrangement came into existence. And I was shocked. I'm like, this hall had been there forever. My dad gave talks as an elder when I was a kid. I'd given a talk as an elder in that congregation too. And then the second thing would happen was, for 6 years, my wife and I, with our kids, did unassigned territory on the Canadian border in upstate New York. And we were in, what was the county called? I forget about it. I'm sorry. I have no idea. Brain shut down. It was on Ogdensburg, Governor, Hammond, New York. I forget the county. It is. I think it was St. Lawrence County. I think that's what I think it was called. St. Lawrence County is like 3 times the size of York County, but they don't even have 100,000 people in that county. Before we got there, they had 3 little small congregations and in the whole county, and they dissolved one of them. They merged to 2. So we go there in 2013 for unassigned territory. There's 2 English congregations, and we go back the next year, 2014. They're down to 1 congregation. It's just Ogdensburg. Governor had been dissolved, and then 2015. Now my wife, I didn't know at the time, but she was already awake. She was going through the motions in the summer of 2015. I was still a service overseer, an elder. They dissolved the Ogdensburg congregation, and they made all the Friends drive across the river into Canada for their meetings. So they had to go through, customs. They had to go through border control every single time to go to every single meeting. and some witnesses didn't have passports, because before 9/11, you didn't need a passport. Now you do, or an enhanced driver's license. So if you just had a normal standard driver's license, you could not go into Canada. So a lot of we found witnesses on unassigned territory who hadn't been to a meeting in months because they couldn't afford, or they didn't have the time to get it. So I was shocked, because these halls were paid off. There was no money issues. Why were they dissolving these congregations? And again, it comes down to the money. Somebody ran the numbers, did a spreadsheet. They were not producing enough money because, again, we're going to go back to Ray Kroc. They are not a religion. They are not a book publishing corporation. They're a multimedia real estate conglomerate. All they care about is the money. So now let's go back to how the Kingdom Halls ran their finances. So I did talk about the building fund, maintenance fund, but also what happened right before the LDC arrangement came into existence was the fact that if you had more than $5,000 in your local funds, you had to give that money, more than $5,000, to headquarters. They said you cannot keep more than $5,000 on hand in your congregation. Just keep it with us. We'll give it back to you. This happened, I don't know exactly when. It was after 2013, after I moved to Prospect from Red Lion. It happened before 2015. Here's how I know why. So in November of 2014, they're going to have a big zone meeting. Every Kingdom Hall in English territory was going to be tied in to the governing body, to, I think it was Wallkill. And we were instructed to get TVs for the first time in summer of 2014. So the weird thing was, we couldn't go to Walmart, we couldn't go to Best Buy or Target or Amazon. We had to buy through this website that Witnesses started. We could only buy the camera equipment, the controllers, the computer, the TVs from this website, and that was it. And we decided, our body decided to buy two 60-inch, I think they were 4Ks TVs. They could have been 1080s, but I think they were 4Ks. They're really expensive. And I even told my coordinator, because I'm the service here, we can get that exact same TV for like $300 cheaper at Best Buy right now. So we didn't have enough money because we only had $5,000 in our account. So our coordinator contacted Watchtower to get money back so we could buy the TVs from them. And it took 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Now remember, when our hall burned down, my previous congregation in 2007, that wasn't even our money. That was their insurance money that they gave us. Next day, $20,000. It took 2 weeks to get our own money back into our account so we could buy TVs from them. And I'm sorry I'm yelling. It made me really upset. So we were one of the first congregations in our county to have TVs set up. Besides the sign language congregation, they already had them for years. And because of that, some congregations are a little slower. The elders just aren't off top of the ball. We all met elders like that. If they didn't have TVs that by a certain date set up, we had to do a test the internet connection. We had to do a weird, like for a week or two before November of 2014, we had to do this weird internet test. I don't know why we had to do it. Then they were checking our connections. Oh, that was the first time we got the internet too. We didn't have internet at our Kingdom Hall before 2014 also. I forgot about that. So luckily, everything passed. So our Kingdom Hall was packed because people come from other congregations to see this zone meeting. So because we were set up, when the LDC arrangement, the announcement came into January 2015, elders from other congregations who didn't have TVs, they had to come to our Kingdom Hall to watch this meeting. Now, I don't know why we couldn't do it from home. I don't know why we couldn't do it from our laptops or our tablets, but we had to do it in Kingdom Hall. So we had like 30 to 50 elders. It was a lot. It was more than one congregation there. I think it was three. At least three congregations were there. It was over 30 elders showed up. I went and got coffee at Starbucks for everybody. It was a nice time. And, I was one of the youngest elders. I think I was the second youngest all there. And, we're watching the LDC arrangement. So they come out with this video, and I don't know if you can still watch it. It used to be on gw.org, and saying how many thousands of Kingdom Halls we need in America, and how slow the RBC work is. We want to streamline it. We want to have one design. We want to save money. Because back in the day, every RBC could have their own design, their own architect, their own engineer. Kingdom Halls weren't identical. Each area was a little different. So they're going to have one standard of Kingdom Hall from now on. This is what it's going to be like. And it seems so great. And this is before my wife woke up, but I was like rah. I was in. This is awesome. I can't wait to join the LDC. I've been in the RBC for 10 years, and I was so excited. I was, really happy about this. So this is, I think, the time when they announced that all the loans are paid off. Remember, all the loans are paid off. So before it was 6% interest, then 3% interest, then 0 interest. And now if you owned $100,000, you owed $1 million, your loan's paid off. And the elders we're clapping. We're like, yeah, this is true love. But then here's where the scam comes into existence. And I'm so happy you stuck around this long video. Here's where the scam come in. So Prospect, Redline, my last 2 congregations, no loans ever. Well, Redline had a loan for 2 years. Prospect had so much money that when they remodeled in '85, no loan. When they and they remodeled again like 2003, they did it all themselves, no loan. Watchtower actually had their funds. So now we were instructed they're going to get rid of the Kingdom Hall Assistance Program. That 3rd box, January 2015, 6 years ago, is now gone. No longer are we going to have people donate money for Kingdom Halls. Now it's going to come from the congregations or the hearts. Because the one brother in that meeting said people are going to be motivated by their hall being paid off, but maybe they're going to continue to make the same donation. So if you've made $200 donation in the past, keep making that donation. And I'm like, wait, what? What? So, for instance, I did the accounts for like off and on for 30 years. At the time I was like, 12 when I was baptized. I'm like 34, 35, around there. It doesn't matter. It was a long time ago. No, I would have been older than that. 2015, I would have been 38. So it's been like 30 years. I helped with the accounts. I know what it was. Every congregation was about $100 to $300 a month, on average, donated to the Kingdom Hall Assistance. Now we're instructed to stop that, but pass slips or pat all the meeting and say, how much money can you donate to help building Kingdom Halls? So 97 publishers. I'll never forget the figure, $853. So we passed the slips out the next service meeting. Now remember, in that LDC meeting, only the elders were there. They didn't know what was going. The rest of the publishers didn't know what was going on. So that was supposed to come not from worldwide work. That was supposed to come from the local needs. And we had $5,000 in the bank. But the problem was the friends were not donating that money. Even though they said they were not donating that money. And our accounts did not go up anymore. Local donations, not $1 more. It was about the same. So I audited the books, in the summer of 2015. Our next elders meeting, I go to our coordinator and secretary and said, we're running out of money. At this rate, we're going to be under $1,000 in the bank. So we had a local needs part. Remember, friends, donate the money. You say you're going to donate $53. We're running out of money. Donations went up a little bit, then dropped right back down again. So this late summer of 2015, we had another elders meeting, and the secretary and I decided, and the whole body got behind us, let's cut this back to $425 a month. Let's cut it in half until we get more money in the bank, because we barely had enough money to pay our electricity and our water bill. So the circuit overseer comes around, my last circuit overseer's visit, fall of 2015, and he said to us as the elders meeting, the friends said that $853, they have to give $853. You go back to them and you make them pay $853. Like it was a shakedown, like he's a mob boss. For instance, we never had a loan. So why would we keep making that loan payment? So do you understand what the corruption happened here? There's going to be more corruption later on. And we're almost at the end. The corruption happened where if you had a 30-year loan or a 10-year loan, eventually that loan was paid off. If you're paying $750 a month for your loan, Watchtower wanted you to keep paying $750 a month forever. If you didn't have a loan, you were supposed to pass the slips out and say, we're going to give this much. Instead of giving $1 per publisher for the local Kingdom Hall Building Fund, the Kingdom Hall Assistance Program, we're going to give $900,000 extra a month. 10,000 congregations in the United States. An extra $1,000, you're talking millions more each month. It was a shakedown. So, why do I say this is Ray Kroc? So, if many of you don't know, there's a great movie with Michael Keaton. I think it's rated R, so I might bother your conscience. But it's a story about Ray Kroc, how the McDonald's brothers started the McDonald's restaurant in the 1950s in San Bernardino, California. And he went to them and said, let me franchise your and I'll make money. Well, the first 10 plus years, he didn't make really a penny because his contract was bad and he was only making 1% sales. Well, his real estate agent and his banker said, you're in the wrong business. You're not in the fries burgers business. You're in the real estate business. You have enough credit to go to the bank to buy land, and why don't you lease the land to the franchisees? So in like 1970, late 60s, Ray Kroc decided then to start buying parcels of land, making the franchisees lease that land. So he's getting profit from the fries and the burgers, but he got more money for the actual land the McDonald's are on than the actual sale of their food. So why do I say that's like Watchtower? Because Watchtower used to make money on selling magazines. We would charge a quarter for each magazine. It didn't matter if we placed it or not. We had to pay for the magazines before we got them to the literature counter. From Mark O'Donnell, we found out that in 2007, it cost like 3 or 4 cents to print a magazine. So what did it cost in the 80s? If it cost 25 years later, 3 or 4 cents per magazine. So they were making money off of us selling magazines for over 100 years. But now they're making money off the land that the Kingdom Halls owned. Remember, Watchtower bought that land. They never bought it. The local friends bought it. The RBC bought it. And then here is the last point of this video. The fact then that now, in paper, Watchtower does not own any Kingdom Hall, but in reality, in fact, they own every Kingdom Hall. So in the United States, every congregation is set up with a trustees or a corporation. It's usually 3 to 5 elders, sometimes it's a ministerial servant. You have a corporation meeting once a year. You vote your president, your secretary, your treasurer. I was a trustee in 2 different congregations, Red Line and in Prospect. Now, legally, when I was a trustee of the Prospect congregation, I legally owned that Kingdom Hall. I had access to the bank account. I could sign checks as a service overseer. I legally owned it. So when we sold that Kingdom Hall, that money did not go to headquarters. It went to our account because we were the legal owners of it. But now, with the LDC arrangement, there is no money passing between congregations and RBC. Watchtower handles everything. So it sounds great. You know, roof leaks, Watchtower pay for the roof leak. You need a new sound system, Watchtower pay for the new sound system. You need your parking lot paved, Watchtower pay for that. But that means that they have total control over who builds, when they build. They took the control from the RBC, and they moved it to headquarters. Now each RBC doesn't have their control of the area. They have total control of every Kingdom Hall. Now, one more point. I'm going to wrap this video up. So when the apostasy happened after Ray France, 2 Kingdom Halls in the United States, who they weren't updated their trustees, you know, apostates actually got a hold of those Kingdom Halls. I think one was in Texas and one was in Jersey. I could be wrong about that if I'm wrong. I know about the Texas one because one of our instructors at our KM school told us about the Texas Kingdom Hall, how the apostates got that, and how important it is to update your trustees every year. So that is why, now I'm no longer a trustee. They took me off the list as soon as I left. I know for a fact they did. I'm not going to take the Kingdom Hall. I don't want it. Plus, I would need a majority of the trustees to approve that plan. So imagine that you're an 80-year-old lady that you've given for 60 years to this local Kingdom Hall, that you've cleaned, you've worked at it, you know, you helped remodel it, you helped build it, you made pies and cookies and cakes. Watchtower comes in and says, you know, we're shutting this Kingdom Hall down. We're selling the hall. You have to drive an hour. Sorry, friends. That's what it is. Why? It's all about the money. Who cares? The hall is paid for. Why are you dissolving Kingdom Hall? I talked about the Tremont congregation I was in for 10 years, 87 to 97. They built that hall with their own hands in 1973. It was all brick. It was all concrete. It was a stone building. There was no wood in that. It was steel and stone construction. They remodeled that in 91. They took a $25,000 loan out in 91 to remodel it. Guess what happens? There's a nursing home right next door to it. It's one of the largest nursing homes in Schuylkill County. Watchtower sold that property and made them drive, you know, to Pottsville, the Kingdom Hall I got married in, where my wife was from. But people had been going there at hall for 50 years. That was the same hall that they went to the fire hall before World War II. And they took it from them. They stole it from them. Think of all the poor sisters who have to drive to Canada to go to the meeting, have to go through customs. Every time you go to a meeting, you have a chance, which I've already been searched. I've been made to pull out of my car and go through the whole thing. Every time. Is that love? No. That is pure greed. Last point. One of the things that woke me up, besides throwing the literature away, was the Menlo Park congregation. If nobody knows what that congregation is, search that. That's Kingdom Hall that was right next to Facebook and Google in California. That land was worth tens of millions of dollars. Watchtower, the Circuit Overseer, the RBC said, this is before the LDC arrangement came in, you have to sell the land. They said, no, we're not selling it. We love this Kingdom Hall, it's perfect. Entire body was removed. New body came in. They sold the land because it was worth money. So, how did Watchtower steal millions of dollars? Slowly and effectively and methodically. Now they are forced donations to every Kingdom Hall in America with no end in sight, with a service here will crack down on that until, this organization falls or all religion is realized to be a crack. What was the saying again? A snare and I forget what that was. You know what I mean? The billboards we used to have. All religion is a snare and a trap. It's all fraud. It's all greed. It's all money. So thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Maybe I'll talk to you about my little shrine behind me one day, as my kids call it. I don't pray to it each day though, but it is my little collection here, back here. So have a great day. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.